Today, we are doing our top 10 shooting guards in the NBA. So without further ado, let's start at number 10. My number 10 shooting guard in the NBA. Might get a little flack for this because not everyone technically considers him a shooting guard, but he is, and that is Khris Middleton on the Milwaukee Bucks. If you don't think he's a shooting guard, John Wall yesterday literally said that he was one of the best shooting guards in the NBA. So if his fellow players calling him a shooting guard, then I'm going to call him a shooting guard. He can also play the three as well because he's 6'8", but his size and his scoring ability at the two guard position is very unique. We do not see a lot of guys with his size man that two guard spot and play it as well as Middleton has over the past couple of years. He took a huge step forward last year in terms of overall scoring ability, averaged 20 points per game, 4 assists, and 5.2 rebounds, was a big reason why the Milwaukee Bucks were able to get to the playoffs last year. He hit that crazy shot against the Celtics in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference playoffs. So that was a lot of fun to watch. He was a great matchup for the Celtics defense. And I think this year, again, like I said with Thon Maker, Budenholzer is going to be huge for Khris Middleton's development. I mean, all those years he spent on the Hawks with Joe Johnson, very similar sized guy to Khris Middleton. Guy has great handles, good shooting ability. I think Middleton is in line for another big season this year. So I had him as my number 10 shooting guard for this year. Let's go to number 9. Devin Booker, I think, should be higher on this list by this time in his career, but other shooting guards just continue to kind of jump ahead of him. Now, my biggest issue with Devin Booker is that he hasn't really shown the NBA ability to do anything except score. Now, obviously, scoring is important. His scoring just got him a $158 million max contract, and you always want scorers on your team, but I want him to take a big next step next year. And he finally has the roster to do so. I mean, you could very much say that, Booker hasn't been able to develop his game very much because their team has been abysmal, but now they have Trevor Ariza. They add Mikal Bridges. They add DeAndre Ayton. They add Elie Okobo. So they're bringing all these guys plus a new head coach. Booker should take a big step forward this year in terms of the overall playmaking ability. He has shooters around him. I think they're going to use him similar to how the Rockets use James Harden, where he's not a typical shooting guard. He kind of plays more of a combo guard position as a primary ball handler. But I think Booker needs to take a next step, and he also has to improve his defense. I mean, I know they have a lot of great wing defenders, but if he continues to play defense as poorly as he has to start his NBA career, he is never going to be as revered as some of the other guys in the NBA. So Booker coming in at number 9 on my list. Let's go to number 8. I'm a little bit lower on him than a lot of people. He's still a fantastic player, but he's kind of hit his ceiling, and that's CJ McCollum. He has really hit his ceiling over the past couple of years. He's about to enter his age 27 season, and look, his ceiling is fantastic. I mean, he's a 20 points per game scorer. That's what he's been over the past 3 years. He's a great combo next to Damian Lillard, but I mean, that's kind of it. That's all you're really getting with CJ McCollum. You're getting a good scorer, you're getting a consistent defender, but you're not getting an overly flashy player. You're not getting a guy who's going to blow the roof off anyone. You're getting a player in CJ McCollum who can score for you, is an elite guy around the rim, a good jump shooter, high fundamental kind of player. He's like DeMar DeRozan in a lot of ways, but just simply worse. He's just not as good. What DeMar DeRozan and CJ McCollum do very similar things. DeMar DeRozan just does all of them better. And I think that's kind of one of the issues I have with McCollum is that there are a lot of similar players to him. He just doesn't do a lot of the things that they do in the elite level. So I have McCollum coming in at number 8. I also think that out of anyone on this entire list, he has the highest chance of getting traded this season if the Blazers just completely bottom out. So McCollum coming in at number 8 on my list. Let's go to number 7. Again, something I might get flack for, but I think this is a fine spot for him. Number 7 overall, we have Donovan Mitchell on my top 10 shooting guards list for this upcoming season. Look, we do not have many players in the NBA, let alone young players, who are as dynamic and as explosive as him. I just have one question about Donovan Mitchell. How much better can he really get? What is Donovan Mitchell's ceiling as an NBA player? Because he was a great defender last year. He was one of the best rookie defenders in basketball. Not as good as Frankie Smokes, but he was a great player for the Jazz last year on both sides of the ball. But realistically, how much better can Donovan Mitchell get as a scorer? I think his playmaking ability will improve over time. I think his assists per game will go up, but are we already at Donovan Mitchell's ceiling as a scorer? I think that's the biggest kind of question mark for Donovan Mitchell going forward, is how much better he can really get. And that's why I only have him at number 7. I think a lot of the other guys that you'll see on this list are either certifiable all-stars, veterans who we already know what they can do and are elite at their skill set. But with Mitchell, there are still a lot of question marks about what he's going to do going forward. So he's only at number 7 on my list. Let's go to number 6 for my top 10 shooting guards heading into next season. At number 6, I have Bradley Beal, one of the best pure scorers in basketball. We saw his playmaking take a big step forward last year with John Wall out. He had one of my favorite jump shots in the NBA. It's so clean. It's so smooth. Bradley Beal is one of my favorite players in basketball. He just, again, like CJ McCollum, is a very one-dimensional kind of player. He's a fantastic scorer of the basketball. And when you're standing next to John Wall, that's fine. That's what he's needed to do on this team. However, there are a lot of other point guards in the NBA who can simply do more than what Bradley Beal can. And it also cannot be forgotten that Bradley Beal has dealt with a lot of injury issues throughout his career. And I think last year we finally saw him get over some of those, but he is still a ticking time bomb in terms of injuries. We never know when he's going to get another debilitating injury. So for me, he hasn't really crossed into that elite category for shooting guards quite yet. He's still in that tier 2 for me of very, very good potential all-star players, but not quite there yet. I want to see another season or 2 of elite play from Bradley Beal before I jump him into my top 5. Let's go into the top 5, and at number 5, we have Jimmy Butler of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, one of the toughest players in all of basketball. The dude is an absolute bulldog, one of the best competitors that we have in the league today. I just wonder if he'll ever find a team where he is the guy. And we're seeing a problem now with the Timberwolves where he doesn't like the young players, and him and Karl Anthony Towns are starting to get into tiffs. And we saw this with Chicago too, that he was also getting involved with some front office problems. We know he didn't want to leave Chicago, but there's a reason that they ended up trading him away. And now it just seems that he can never really find the team for him. And I also wonder, can you win an NBA Finals with Jimmy Butler as the best or second best player on your team? What is the peak for Jimmy Butler for how far he can get you in an NBA playoff series? Really, like, how good is your team if Jimmy Butler is the best player that you have on it? I don't think at that point you have an elite NBA team if he's your best player, which is why he only comes in at number 5 for me. This is going to be a very weird year for Jimmy Butler with the extension that he turned down, with him about to be a free agent, maybe going to the Knicks or the Nets. So Butler for me coming in at number 5. Let's go to number 4. I have Victor Oladipo. I fell in love with Oladipo last year because he's a multi-dimensional player. He won the Most Improved Player award last season for a reason. Well deserved. Maybe the biggest shoe-in for any award in the NBA last year. Led the Pacers to the playoffs, helped push LeBron and the Cavs to 7 games, averaged 23 points per game. His playmaking ability was off the charts last year. It was great to see Oladipo finally get freed and be allowed to be the player that we thought he could be when he came out of Indiana. I'm a big Oladipo guy. I think he's going to be one of the best players in the Eastern Conference this year and might end up being a starter for the All-Star team this year. He is a fantastic player. I'm a big-time Victor Oladipo guy. I might get a little hate for having Oladipo over Jimmy Butler, but I just can't do it. I think Oladipo has a higher upside going into next season than what Jimmy Butler brings to the table. So we have Victor Oladipo coming in at number 4. Let's go to number 3 on my list of the best shooting guards in the NBA. We got DeMar DeRozan. He is one of the most hated players in the NBA, and I understand that his playoff performances have not been great. They've been bad. He's been bad in the playoffs. I'll admit it. He can admit it. Anyone on the team can admit it that he has simply been bad in the playoffs. But, he's been one of the best regular season players in basketball over the past half decade. He made All-NBA second team last year, 20 points per game every single year. The last 5 seasons, he's made the All-Star team 4 of the last 5 years, and was the best player on the best team in the Eastern Conference last year in the regular season. I know that he sucked in the playoffs. I get it. He's been bad in the playoffs for multiple years now, but Now you take this guy, again, a 20-point per game scorer the last 5 years, one of the better two-way guys at his position as well, and you're giving him to Greg Popovich. DeMar DeRozan is going to have a massive season with the Spurs this year. I cannot wait to see what Popovich does with him going forward. All right, let's go to number 2 on my list. We're seeing, is it James Harden? Is it Klay Thompson? And number 2 on my list, it's Klay Thompson. It's absolutely Klay Thompson. Anyone who tells you that Klay Thompson isn't one of the 10 to 15 best players in all of basketball, just walk away. Just walk away. I'm tired of those people at this point. He is the best two-way player at his position without a question. And Colin Cowherd and I don't agree on many things, but Cowherd said something very interesting on his show a couple weeks ago. Klay Thompson is maybe the only player in the NBA who would be a perfect fit on every single team in the NBA. There are only a couple guys who actually fall into that category, but Klay Thompson is for sure one of those guys. You could put him on any team in basketball and he would instantly make them better. His defense is elite. His three-point shooting is elite. He's maybe one of the 10 best shooters that we've ever seen in basketball. So Klay Thompson for me, absolutely the second best shooting guard in the NBA going into next season. So we go to number 1. I don't want to hear this crap that James Harden is a point guard. James Harden is a combo guard that plays the 2 when Chris Paul is on the court. So when a real point guard comes out and comes onto the court, James Harden goes to the 2, which tells me that he is still primarily a shooting guard. And look, I know that LeBron should have won the MVP last year. I get it. I think so too. But if anyone in the NBA was going to win the MVP last year, and that wasn't LeBron, it was going to be James Harden. He was the deserving NBA MVP, regardless of his defense. He was fantastic last year, led the Rockets to the best record in the NBA. But we need to see James Harden start to show up in the playoffs. We really do. He was one of the primary reasons why they couldn't close out the Warriors in that 7-game series. I know he was great in the first half of Game 6 and Game 7. I get it. But look, his shooting percentage in the playoffs is a full 20 points lower in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. His three-point percentage drops under 30% in the playoffs. That is not good enough. James Harden needs to start showing up in the playoffs before we really start putting him in the pantheon of all-time great players. You just can't perform as poorly in the postseason as he has and be considered an all-time great NBA player. But in terms of where we are in today's modern-day NBA, yes, without a question, he is the best shooting guard in the NBA. But let me know from you guys, is it Klay Thompson? Is it James Harden? Is it DeMar DeRozan? Let me know. Who is the best shooting guard in the NBA? It's James Harden for my money. The dude just won MVP. Maybe should have won it the year before over Russell Westbrook. And going forward, he's going to be a fantastic player as he finishes off his prime.